and a very warm welcome indeed to the Royal Opera House. To those of you watching live here in the Claw studio upstairs, and also everyone watching worldwide via our live YouTube stream. Tonight we're joined by the music director here at the Royal Opera House, Antonio Pappano, and he's going to be taking us on an amazing journey exploring one of the most enduring operas by Jules Massenet, Werther. We'll be featuring live performances from artists Heather Engebretsen and Jean-Francois Borras, with accompaniment from Jonathan Santagada, who is one of our Jette Parker young artists here at the Opera House. Packed full of melodious music, virtuoso singing and intense romantic drama, this evening's insight will, I hope, leave you spellbound by Massenet's beautifully haunting score. To find your closest cinema, wherever you are in the world, do look at the Royal Opera House website, roh.org.uk/cinema. Now, if you have thoughts or questions about this evening's event, do tweet us. The hashtag is ROHWerther. As the first night approaches, the digital programme will be being updated with films, articles and all sorts of pictures to bring you closer to the production. And you can use the promo code FREEWerther to get your free copy. That's at roh.org.uk/publications. And now, please welcome the Royal Opera House's longest-serving music director, the one and only Antonio Pappano.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is one of my favorite operas. I've recorded it twice, and I keep coming back to it. And I don't quite know why, but I'm going to try to answer that for myself as much as for you. As you probably know, this opera is based on, excuse me, a story by Werther, which set not only a fashion in male attire, but also some suicides among neurotics. Such was the power of the story, but it quickly became dated. But it was with this opera of Jules Massenet with his three librettists, and the date must be 1892, that brought the story back. And it's very much a French view of a story that takes place in a quite well-to-do German village. And you have to keep that in mind. But the depth of emotion and the lyricism and the pathos, genuine pathos of the story is, I think, universal. And there's no nationality when the quality is this good. Now, there are myriad themes in this opera. And the story centers around this character, Werther, who is a young poet, but destined for a diplomatic career. And he is a very strange individual. He's a dreamer. I would even say a narcissist, but everything he says, and he talks a lot about nature and the things that are going on around him, even the the walls, the corners, the little brook. It's how things make him feel. So it's psychologically quite an interesting picture of a character in musical terms. And a disintegration of this character because he can't ultimately have the love that he thinks he deserves. And the love interest is, of course, Charlotte, wonderful character who has made a promise to her mother, who is now deceased, but on the deathbed of her mother, the mother made her promise that she would marry Albert. Very upright fellow, very nice businessman. But she gets to meet Werther in the meantime, and Werther touches something in her that is that she probably imagined she could never have, because when you meet Albert, you'll understand he's a very nice guy, but he doesn't have this. Well, maybe let's call it the erotic charge of Werther. But Werther is a poet, and he sees things in. He has visions, and the way he describes things, and the way he says things to her, and how he's affected by the children in the household. Charlotte, being the oldest daughter, is looking after 7 other children, in fact. There's a daughter who's closer to her age, but the other children are very, very small. So she's like the mother figure. Anyway, going back to Werther, the first theme we encounter is something quite startling because it almost sounds Gothic. Then these themes weave. Sound like we're in a small German village, does it? Really. I don't think of Riesling when I hear that music. Somehow, this initial phrase that I played for you, that I called almost Gothic, is actually quite simple, but it's very effective. This is the line in the bass, a descent. You could almost say into madness. And going the other way are these chords going up. So you put them together. You feel the pressure, and there's this huge crescendo, and then the timpani comes. The conflicting emotions, the unrest of the music is absolutely incredible and very psychologically telling of somebody that is disturbed, but also that Charlotte has had to struggle to make a choice in her life. And I think it very, very clearly shows that. But what we don't expect is this madness of the title character. That obsessional kind of thing, that repetitive dee da da dee da dee da da dee, and then you get an explosion, an arrival in fortissimo that then immediately goes down to pianissimo. And this is a feature of this score, the huge dynamic range from fortissimo to pianissimo. Listen to this. Again, descending, always descending into the abyss somehow. That morphs in this prelude. We have the first lyric moment, which we will hear again later in the first act, and it's almost like a country melody. Music sighs. Long phrases, I would say typically French here. Continues in that vein. It could go on forever, and the beauty of nature and how Werther perceives it, and how he drinks it in, and how it is as much a part of him, this relationship to things that are outside of himself. The music, the actual first act starts with the giggling children, these 6 kids who are making a right noise backstage. They start laughing. We hear, which is very characteristic, the laughing of children's voices, which is very beautiful actually, as an effect before we even see them. And the music giggles with them. Their father, the bailiff, is teaching them this Christmas song. Now, it's the middle of July, but they're really not very good. And in fact, when they sing the first time, they sing, Noël, 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 Jésus vient de naître, voici notre divin maître. And they sing in that way, kind of almost a cliche of the children's voice, en masse. He then corrects them. He says, oh, you can't sing like that. You can't sing like that. And we get these abrupt gestures. That kind of thing. So it feels at the very beginning of this opera almost like an operetta. And the music is light. And finally, he gets them to sing very nicely with a beautiful string accompaniment. Jésus vient de naître, voici notre divin maître, berger d'Israël. Dans le firmament, des anges gardiens fidèles ont ouvert grandes les ailes et se volant tout chantant Noël. It's beautiful, beautiful. And to hear the children's voices, it's lovely. It's absolutely lovely. Then we meet these 2 drinking buddies of the bailiff, and their name is Schmidt and Johann, and with their music, I think Massenet tries to give a little German rusticity to the proceedings. I kind of think Meistersinger, poor man's Meistersinger, if you like. Eh? But the theme that he chooses for their music is, it kind of reeks of beer, and it's this. You know, if I were conducting it, I'd have to have a beer stein in my hand. But that's the kind of, and he does a lot with this music. And you get. So you get what you get is a kind of a dancing, frivolous, fun background, and we have conversation. There's going to be there's a ball tonight, and everybody's going to the dance, and it's going to be wonderful. And by the way, can you get out for a drink? Come on, when are you going to get out of here? To the bailiff, and that's the general feeling of that scene. Very light. So you get everything is brought in a different guise, this drinking song, but it's all the same music. We meet another theme, which is Charlotte's theme, which is a very warm, rising figure. Da, 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 da. I'll play that again. We don't see her yet, but we hear her music. And when she makes her entrance, we'll hear that music again. Very, very clever on Massenet's part to always somehow to foreshadow the music of a character before they appear. What I didn't tell you in the Prelude was that I did tell you there's this Werther's music and that country melody that I played for you. Will be his first entrance music. And so the audience, as an audience, you're prepared to take that all in. Now, I've basically described quite a frivolous scene with these two drinking buddies. The kids are chaos. They're singing a song. They sing it badly. They sing it beautifully. But there's a tremendous domestic joy, if you like. With one chord, you know that the opera perhaps is not going to stay that way. And Jean-Francois, would you like to join me now? And you hear... solo cello. Solo violin.
Alors, c'est bien ici la maison du bailli. Merci.
Here's that melody again. And he takes it all in. Looking at the house. Charlotte's family. He says, I don't know if I'm awake or I'm dreaming.
Je ne sais si je veille ou si je rêve encore. Tout ce qui m'environne allait d'un paradis. Le bois soupire ainsi qu'une harpe sonore. Un monde se révèle à mes yeux éblouis. Ô nature pleine de grâce, reine du temps et de l'espace, daigne accueillir celui qui passe et te salue. Mystérieux silence, au calme solennel. Tout m'attire et me plaît, ce mur et ce coin sombre, cette source limpide et la fraîcheur de l'ombre. Il n'est pas une heure, il n'est pas un buisson où n'éclose une fleur, où ne passe un frisson. Oh nature, enivre-moi de parfum, mère éternellement jeune, adorable et pure. Oh nature, et toi soleil, viens m'inonder de tes
Fantastic. It's an amazing visiting card, isn't it, for a character? And it's. But did you notice how the music bears down on you? It's sustained. It has incredible French lyricism and poetry, but it has a power. It draws you in, and it provokes the orchestra to have these big outbursts, which I find particularly interesting. So when I'm conducting this piece, I find very, very much that I'm almost wrapped around the singers. That's my mission, is to wrap myself around the singers and really sort of dance with them, if you like. Now, did you hear one thing I want to say about the vocal style? When I said his first phrase was je ne sais si je vais, I don't know if I'm awake or if I'm still dreaming. And he says, everything that's around me has the air of paradise. And that phrase goes, à l'air d'un paradis. And that high note, l'air d'un paradis. I can't do it, but he sang it beautifully, and he went very, very soft. And then at the very end, he sang a very high, the same note, but in forte. And that's that kind of refinement, that kind of back and forth is essential to the French singing style. It's more classical than the Italian singing style. There's something, but the words are so helpful here. He talks about la nature and all these closed vowels that make use of the lips. If I get, ô nature pleine de grâce, reine du temps et de l'espace. Yeah, that nature, the queen of time and space. I mean, it's unique, actually. There's no character quite like him. Now, they go off to the dance that he's invited to. He meets Charlotte, and he's stricken immediately by the wonder of how she handles the domestic situation. These kids, 6 of them, really small, and that's how he falls in love with her, by watching her be a mother to these children. And they go off to the dance, and there's a particularly characteristic dance. It's one of these accompaniments. rustic it is and all that. And they go on. But then he has another outburst, au spectacle idéal d'amour, he says. It's a spectacle, an ideal spectacle of love and innocence. This, what I just told you about, and au spectacle idéal d'amour. Sorry for those of you who are watching on the net. We didn't plan to do that number, so you didn't get surtitles. But you understood from the music that there's a next step. Do you see how he's becoming more spontaneous and more charged, and the music becomes pushier as well as lyric? And it's in the nature of his character, this disquiet, this sometimes irrational disquiet, and how he has to comment on everything. Now, I told you about the guy that she has to marry, and this is Albert, and his music, his music is rather perfunctory, I would say. It's nice, but it's not that. He has a lovely aria. He does have a beautiful aria, but even he's been away, and he's going to surprise Charlotte. Very beautiful, actually. It's tender. It's nice. It's lovely. But it lacks that charge. Now, he comes back. He finds Charlotte gone. She's off at the dance, and he's taken aback by this. And what we hear music of Werther and Charlotte returning. They've been dancing, and they've had a wonderful, wonderful time together. And we get one of the most magical scenes in this opera, and it's the clair de lune, and it's moonlight, solo cello, but this very characteristic low note in the viola. These echoes in the top voice, and then more accent. Goes into the higher register. You really hear the stars, don't you? It's beautiful. I think it's better than Debussy's Clair de Lune myself. I mean it. And then the whole orchestra. She says the words, "Il faut nous séparer." We must separate. That's not at all what he wants to hear, of course. But it is. Then she explains to him that her mother left her with this situation, and that she's become a mother herself. And it's beautiful, tender music. Listen to this theme. I feel the presence of my mother everywhere, and then when I take care of her children, she said, ses enfants. There's a moment where she says, de mes enfants. It's absolutely beautiful. This opera is full of little details of text and color, and it can turn on a, as we say in American, on a dime. It just, you get this heartbreaking little fantastic details. When she explains this again, this situation, this domestic situation, and what he goes off on her, he goes, "Oh, Charlotte, you're an angel of duty," and his music goes even further. Now, can you sing that phrase, because that's very interesting. He didn't sign up for this, by the way.
Oh, Charlotte, ange du devoir, la bénédiction du ciel sur toi repose.
See how his music is growing. So there's a tremendous arc in his character that you can follow theatrically, vocally, musically. And that's very, very important about this opera. Everything, she says, and then she describes the death of her mother, and how to explain this to the children. And we hear these dark chromatic noises. Who took her away? And you would think his reaction would be one of compassion. Instead, he says, it's a dream. It's ecstasy, happiness. I would give my life to pour garder à jamais ses yeux, ce front charmant, cette bouche, to have these eyes, this beautiful face before me. And it's incredible. He's a little bit off. But you have to hear the beginning of this, because it's one of the most beautiful moments in the piece.
Cette bouche adorable, étonnée et ravie, sans cœur à son tour, les contemple un moment.
And it's like a triumph. Amazing, you see, and now we reach a point of arrival where he flies, that celestial smile. He says, "Oh, Charlotte, I love you, je vous aime." And he says, "Je vous aime et je vous admire." I admire you. She says, "We're crazy. Rentrons, let's go back. Mais will we see each other again?" And then you hear the voice of her father with that chord. Charlotte, Albert has returned. Yeah, exactly. And you get Albert. And she says, "Yes, I promised to marry him." And this hits him like a thunderbolt. And we hear the music of the moonlight again, but in a different guise. And then he says, "Someone else, her husband." But listen how he gets there. Heartbreaking, so beautiful. expression. And that's the first act. So I've concentrated on the first act because you have such a wealth of themes that we will meet over and over again. Especially the moonlight, the drinking music, which opens the second act. The priest is celebrating 50, not the priest, sorry, the whatever you call him, celebrating 50 years of marriage, and so they're having a feast, and he's giving a service, and there's a feast. 3 months have gone by. The couple have gotten married, and we see them married, and I'll just play you this theme. Quite wistful. And they sit together on a bench in this production. It's beautiful, and you can see that there's nothing there. It's heartbreaking. It's beautiful because it looks like a picture, a postcard of the happy married couple, but you can see that something is not right there. And the background is very, very sweet music. He enters after they leave, and his first words are the same words that he sang at the end of the first act. And I want to let you hear some of this, because now you can imagine the state that he's in, because he says, someone else is her husband. Jonathan, I need help. I can't play this bit now. But if I may guide you, I'll guide you a little bit. Okay. So we hear the organ from the church service finishing up, just the end of that somewhere there. Lovely melody, and then with this chord, everything changes.
Un autre et son époux, un autre et son époux. Dieu de bonté, si tu m'avais permis de marcher dans la vie avec cet ange à mon côté, mon existence entière n'aurait jamais été qu'une ardente prière. Et maintenant, parfois, j'ai peur de blasphémer. C'est moi que ne pouvait t'aimer.
That she could have loved.
J'aurais sur ma poitrine dressé la plus divine, la plus belle créature que Dieu même ait su former. C'est moi qu'elle pouvait aimer. Lorsque s'ouvrait le ciel qui s'illumine, soudain je l'ai vu se fermer, je l'ai vu se fermer. C'est moi qu'elle pouvait aimer. Ma poitrine, c'est la plus divine, la plus belle créature que Dieu même ait su former. C'est moi qu'elle pouvait aimer. C'est moi qu'elle pouvait aimer. Pour mon corps en frissonne, en pleurs.
Wow, fantastic. You see, even with this music, a step further. You can't believe it. And even, he says, I want to hold her close to me. I want to hold her close to me. And within that, there's still an accelerando, very telling accompaniment. Ta-tu, 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 ba-ba-ba, 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 boom, boom. So octaves in the left hand, if you like, in the bass, and ta-ta-ta, ta-ta-ta. This fever in the right hand, or the strings, to accompany, and his growing mania. Okay, it's very, very strong. There's a confrontation between him and Albert, where Albert says, I understand that in the past when she was free, that there may have been something between you or something. And I understand this, young man. Of course I understand. But, basically he's telling her, get the hell out of here. But he's saying in such refined terms. But it's clearly a warning to him among gentlemen. It's very astutely done, using the rising theme of Charlotte that we met before, using that music. And so her presence is there, even though she's not in the room. It's very clever from Massenet how he does that. We have this discourse. And again, he accepts, but he remains. He says, yes, there was a storm, but now the storm has passed. He describes it. Well, he's obviously lying, because you just saw what's really going on inside him, which is very stormy indeed. Jean-François, why don't you take a rest for a minute? Yeah. And we meet Charlotte's sister. Now, Charlotte's sister, Sophie, is one of the loveliest characters. And it's Heather Engebretsen, who is actually doing the role. And she says, brothers, look, the bouquet, there's going to be another party, another dance. And she says, I've raided the garden, the jardin, so the jardin, and I've got flowers and we're going to dance. And she talks about the beautiful sunshine and how it in the resplendent blue. Her music is very much in contrast with her sisters, and especially with his. And so and of course, for any great opera composer, you need musical contrast. So her music is full of sunshine and full of spirit, I would say. Let's try. Here we go. And almost Mendelssohn. She asks Werther if she can count on him for the first dance, and this is his reaction.
Le sombre visage. Mais aujourd'hui, Monsieur Werther, tout le monde est joyeux, le bonheur est dans l'air. Dieu son lieu, plein de fleurs, dans nos yeux resplendissants, la pure clarté des sons nous offrant jusqu'à notre âme. Tout le monde est joyeux, le bonheur est dans l'air. Et l'oiseau qui monte aux yeux dans
Lovely. Now, she does have a re-entrance, like kind of, in the show where you repeat the tag kind of, but this time, and we'll do that, but this time, Massenet, in wonderful French, typical French style, I should say, changes the dynamics. Listen, if we go from "Ah frère" just before that, so, yeah. And
Monsieur Werther, je vous invite pour le premier menuet avec mes soyeux pleins de fleurs, nos yeux resplendissants, l'empire de clarté descend de nos fronts jusqu'à notre âme. Tout le monde joyeux, le moment est dans l'air.
Great. And what's his reaction? What's his reaction? It's like a cloud of doom, or And thank you, Heather. That's terrific. Yeah. There's another duet between Charlotte and Werther. And we meet, let me take them for a minute, and we meet some different themes now. This one in particular, can't you find someone else? You can imagine how that goes over, right? But even in her music, there's disquiet. She's trying to be reasonable. This is him. And it gets even more heated and gets more operatic, frankly. She's constantly telling him, listen, I'm not free. I can't be with you. And the more she says that, more he fights her. And she finally says to him, you must go away in a sort of exile, but not forever. And she says, remember, it was July, August, September. She says, come back at Christmas. And so 3 months to go away. À la Noël. And this is his reaction. What we heard in the Prelude, this music comes back now. It's that exile music is what I actually call it. Werther is left alone, devastated, and at one point he says something absolutely outrageous. He says, why tremble before death? Before one's own death? Why? He says, you lift the curtain and you pass to the other side. And we have these chords, very characteristic. They're chords denoting peace, an end of his struggle, if you like. This is what we call death. So it's this peace. He's trying to make sense of what he's feeling. And this is for the first time saying, would I offend God if I put an end to my suffering? So this is the beginning of the idea of suicide, that if he can't have what he wants, that the only way out is death. And and he sings this incredibly charged. I'm not going to let you hear it. You have to come to the show. Incredibly charged aria where he calls to God. He says, God, call me. It's like it's defying almost God, and it's very disturbing indeed to the maximum. Very passionate, and there's a high note, a wonderful high note, a B natural. That is optional in the score, I see. No, actually, the B natural is the big note. The optional one is the lower one. They have to go up. But it's Appelle-moi, fantastic. The act ends. We get another prelude to third act, which is very similar to the one in the opening act, except it concentrates more on Charlotte's music. This theme that I played for you, this trying to console. But the more it goes on, the more we realize that she is in a real state. The dynamics now are heightened, etc., etc. And all this time, he goes away in exile and he writes letters to her, one after another. And she has a famous aria called scene called the letter scene, very similar similar to Tatiana's in Onegin, but she's not writing letters, she's reading his letters where he talks about all kinds of things and the children and the dark December, and you get this scene. In fact, it shivers, the music shivers. You can almost hear the icicles. And she recites these letters and then he talks about the children. And you get and we hear the giggling again. So all the while this is working on her and working on her and working on her and working on her. All of a sudden he appears. She would never have expected him to show up. But he does. He says, and he's broken, and the music is broken. There's this, almost sounds like James Bond here, but actually listen to it. Oui, c'est moi, je reviens, et pourtant, ta-ta-ta. It's complete, like each of his phrases is broken like he is. And he's in a real state and quite dangerous, actually. She tries to distract him, and we hear her theme. She says, isn't the house beautiful? It's like it was. Don't you remember it? And nothing's changed. And she keeps changing the subject. And he looks up, he says, oh, here's where near the clavichord where we used to sing together. And here are the books that we read together, and our heads came closer. And there are the guns. And she gets a kind of premonition, because he goes for the guns with too much fervor. And she says, no, but look at this poetry you used to translate. The poet Ossian, and she distracts him, and he sings this beautiful aria that is a very deathly poem, but it was typically him and melancholic and full of nostalgia. And why do you wake me? Spring, why do you wake me? And very strange aria, beautiful aria. And from there, that aria is transformed into one of the hottest love duets I say hot, but I don't mean that it's so sexy as it's just so incredibly intense. And the music, I'm not going to play it for you, because to do it justice, we have to have the two singers. And since I only have one, I'm not going to sing Charlotte tonight. That's for sure. But it reaches a fever pitch, and she almost falls. You know. And then she says, no, I've got to leave. I belong to another. And then you understand that when he leaves, you understand something terrible is going to happen. Werther sends a note to her husband, saying, may he borrow his guns, those pistols that he mentioned before. And the husband, of course, is nothing would please him more. And in fact, he says to Charlotte, you deliver them. You have them delivered. And it's very, very unusual music, full of tension. Just keeps repeating again, very obsessional. Yeah. He shoots himself, of course. And there's a long death scene, and all he wants is the consolation of having Charlotte at his side. And that's what he gets. She runs to him. And finally she says to him, she gives him a kiss. And we understand that there is real love there. His final aria is one of the most beautiful creations, and that's the last music example I'm going to give you. Jean-François, this is when he says, I will die. Non, Charlotte, je meurs, oui.
Non, Charlotte, je meurs, oui, meurs.
Extraordinary. Just 2 chords now.
Écoute bien.
Like a dirge.
Là-bas, au fond du cimetière, il est de grands tilleuls. C'est là que pour toujours je voudrais reposer. Si cela m'était refusé, si la terre chrétienne est interdite au corps d'un malheureux, près du chemin ou dans le vallon solitaire, allez placer ma tombe. En détournant les yeux, le prêtre passera. Mais à la dérobée, quelque femme viendra visiter le banni. Et d'une douce larme en son âme tombée. Le mort, le pauvre mort, se sentira béni.
The last thing we hear is the children's voices from backstage celebrating Christmas. Her saying, Charlotte saying, everything is finished. Noël, 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 Noël. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jean-François. Thank you. Thank you, Heather, and thank you, Jonathan. He played the real difficult bits.
And thank you to you, Tony Pappano. What an absolutely magnificent insight into this remarkable opera. Thank you so much. I've got to ask, did you find the answer as to why you love it so much?
Well, you know what it is? I guess I'm fascinated with his character a lot. I mean, I'm not like him at all, I promise you. But I'm fascinated by somebody who is that intense and that single-minded, I think. Charlotte is caught between a rock and a hard place, and she chooses duty, and that's a tough one when you sacrifice something that you know would perhaps bring you that something special, you know?
Yeah, and joy and purpose and meaning.
Yeah.
Is it true that this is one of 3 operas that you say you wouldn't let anyone else come and conduct here?
Not during my time, that's for sure. No, there's when you've got it, when you're conducting this music, it's like it's the greatest music ever written. And I know it isn't, but it's a wonderfully structured opera, and it's a perfect piece of theatre if you have the right protagonists, if you have the right characters. And it's, of course, it's a vehicle for all the great tenors. All the great tenors sang it. You know, the great Alfredo Krauss, it was his signature role. But Plácido sang it, and Carreras sang it, and Luciano didn't sing it, I don't believe. But you have so many singers who have really, Alagna and Kaufmann and all these guys, and Borras, and now Grigolo, who's doing it for the first time. And it's an important role. It does become a signature role for every person that takes it on. And it's a huge sing, and it requires incredible stylistic refinement, but also the orchestra is enormous. It's often quite Wagnerian in its proportions, and that would surprise you. But this Gothic background to it, these explosions that happen, explosions of emotion, are certainly mirrored in the orchestra. And so you have to have a singer who has a voice that, even if it's not huge, must be able to penetrate the orchestral fabric. That's essential. So you can't have, tiny light tenor do this role, even though he might look right, a waif, sort of with his head in the clouds. You need a real singer here.
I'm interested by you talking about just how wonderful this music is, and you illustrated so beautifully the complexity and the way that Massenet details with extraordinary precision what needs to come out of the original Goethe story. Do you think he's a bit underrated?
Oh, there's no question in my mind that he's underrated. I mean, I'll give you an example. I mean, if you know Manon Lescaut of Puccini, and you know Manon of Massenet, and for me, Manon Lescaut is one of the great operas of Puccini, and certainly among my favorites. But he took so much from Massenet's Manon, which was written, I think, 9 or 10 years earlier. And I think that's a form of respect, but of course, people don't talk about that very much. But Massenet was a great orchestrator, and he was also a shrewd, very much like Puccini, a shrewd theater man. He knew what would work. Now, sometimes his choice of subjects would be a little bit too, shall we say, grandiose, and therefore would sort of fall under their own weight. But this, it has the trappings. Of course, it is a domestic drama, but it feels bigger than what it is. The story of this poet really means something to him, and he's captured it absolutely beautifully. He's spot on with the structure. It's not too long, it's not too short. Each act gets better than the one that precedes it, and gains in intensity, and the themes keep coming back, and yet he invents new ones. So that's exactly what you want from an opera composer.
It was so wonderful to watch you working with the singers, but you mentioned what a wonderful orchestrator Massenet is. What will you be hoping to tease out of the Royal Opera House?
Well, you know, every French opera has sections where lightness and clarity and brilliance and virtuosic qualities must come out. But that's, in a way, a cliche in itself. But I think what's very, very important is the passion in this piece that you must be able to carry the audience. It's not just these, I talked about explosions before, but it's not just explosions, it's a real journey, and that you must take the audience on. And so that's what I love doing. And as I showed you with Werther's role gaining intensity, it has a real journey of its own, musical journey, that and finally his music finally goes in reverse, if you like. If that's a crude way of putting it, but it's that release, the imminent death, which makes his music go the other way. Otherwise, he's on a spiral, which is just absolutely incredible, but a spiral that's going that way.
Mm. We know what happened when the original book came out, and it created this trend for suicides. I mean, should the production be coming with an emotional advisory? What can our audience expect?
No, we've had too many of those this year, I think. The production is very simple and very direct and very clear, and absolutely requires that the performers do everything they can, but often with the subtlest of means to communicate the beautiful words, the gorgeous music, but there's a lot of hidden feeling. Werther more and more, he lets things out, but Charlotte keeps things, she's repressed in nature by necessity. Mm. And so as an actress, she has to be extremely subtle. You can see what she's thinking, but she must, she's not going to tear the stage apart. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But Werther might,
Watch this space. Tony, thank you so much for an absolutely fascinating evening. Thank you to everyone who's been watching, and thank you for your comments on social media. Lovely to know that we've had viewers from Poland, Korea, Romania, Peru, Norway and Brazil. Thank you again to our wonderful singers Jean-François Borras and Heather Engebretsen, and to Jonathan Santagada, who is on the Jette Parker Young Artists scheme here at the Opera House. And of course, a huge thank you always to Antonio Pappano. Now, if we don't see you here in Covent Garden for the production, I do hope that you'll be able to catch it in one of your local cinemas. To find a screening near you, please visit the website roh.org.uk/cinema. Before we finish, a very quick taster of what's in store. But meanwhile, from all of us here in Covent Garden, thank you so much for joining us, and good night.